All right, guys, what's going on? So, I do not think that most people are as lazy as they truly think that they are, especially most young men, right? And what I mean by that is that it's in today's world, there are so many like videos on the internet that try to motivate young men, like the motivation type, David Goggins videos about how we gotta do more, and like everybody makes it seem as though we have just a pure problem of laziness, right? And I don't think it's that simple. And obviously, I'm not the first person that has talked about this beyond like being lazy in terms of like how it relates to comfort. But that's what I want to talk about right now. Like, I think the laziness problem that a lot of young men have is purely because we're too comfortable today. They always talk about, or when I say they, I mean people that are older than us. They always reference the old generations and how they had like a tougher time living or growing up, and how they say young men nowadays are soft and whatnot. And I would sort of disagree completely. Like, I'm not gonna say like all of the young men that exist now are soft, but I'm sure growing up in a time where like life was a bit more rough probably does make you it makes you have a tougher exterior. You're probably able to handle more and you're not gonna be scared to do things in life, right? And a lot of young men nowadays, we've grown up in this very comfortable society where we have all of this technology, we have smartphones, we have the internet, video games, flat screen TVs, fast food, McDonald's, shout out the Filet-O-Fish. We have all of these things that are like designed to keep everybody comfortable, but it affects you a lot more, I think, if you're like a younger person, right? So as young men, we have a problem where like, if you're not really taught how to avoid that, then it's easy for you to fall down that pit. So that's what I said here. I said you chase what feels good, not what you need. And this is a problem that a lot of like 18 to 22-year-old men have. Like, it's so easy to just get caught in a dopamine cycle of like playing games, smoking weed, drinking, using your phone, social media, etc. Says that scrolling, smoking, chilling, you're hooked on low effort rewards. And there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things, but of course, I don't even think this has to really be said, but if you engage in these activities more than you engage in things that are actually high effort, then you're gonna get comfortable doing things that don't take much effort, and as a result, you're not gonna really achieve much in life. So I said you've cooked your reward system, right? Don't cook your reward system. As a result of you cooking your reward system, you're gonna start to build habits that kill your discipline. So it's not something that happens overnight, like especially when you're young, you're still developing as a person. Your brain isn't even fully developed. I'm 22 years old. I don't think my brain is fully developed, they say, right? Like, it doesn't develop until you're like 25 or something. So if you start to adopt these habits where you're just only doing things that are low effort, you work a dead end job, no education, scrolling, smoking weed, playing the game, only doing stuff that is low effort, just dopamine type shit, right? These habits start to build up over time. And laziness, I say here, laziness is not a choice, it's a result of your habits. These habits that you've accumulated over time as a result of you making these poor decisions, it literally becomes who you are. This is why I'm saying, like, technically people think, oh, I'm just a lazy person. I'm just like, working out, it's not me. That's not truly who you are. You just have this mindset where you're addicted to being comfortable. People wake up, they get right on their phone, they engage in instant dopamine activities, like I said up here previously, and lack of motivation as a result of that. And the more you repeat that pattern, you start to avoid anything that is difficult. So how many of us young men, like, and this is not something that I'm completely like absolved of. Like, I'm not gonna act like I don't have faults as a person, right? I always like to bring it back to myself because like I'm still growing as a man, right? But obviously doing stuff that is not easy, it takes a bit more effort to even start. Not only is it a high effort activity in general, like doing these things, these are low effort or low effort reward, blah, blah, blah. Doing stuff that is difficult actually takes motivation, right? But if you have these habits, if you have this mindset that's built up over time, like I said before, you are literally going to start to avoid even doing anything. You're never going to have that motivation that you need to initially take that first step. Like, think about like a child that's trying to learn how to ride a bike. Like, they have such a drive and so much motivation to accomplish that because, of course, a child is a child, and they haven't developed any of these habits that I'm talking about right now, because this is something that comes more as you mature. But you get what I'm saying. You understand the analogy. Like, you have the motivation to do stuff, even stuff that's difficult. Learning how to ride a bike for the first time is hard for most people, right? Especially when you're a kid. But if you have that drive and motivation, it's doable. You can do it. So you give up on stuff before you even try. Anything uncomfortable you avoid, and your brain expects relief, not resistance. And this is a huge problem, I think, in our generation, because especially like the social media generation that we grew up with, if it's not easy for a lot of young men, they chicken out. And of course, it's a whole subset of young men that do not fall into these categories at all. But if you're watching this and you do, you have to understand that you should not always expect everything to be easy or everything to be comfortable. Like, the world is designed to be hard. You know, you can look at the world, life as a game. This shit is on hard difficulty by default, and you have no way around that. So if you try to avoid the uncomfortable moments or things you need to do in life, especially as a young man, you're never gonna grow. Because by default, bro, it's like playing a game, like I just said, bro. If you playing a game, you can't skip the level to beat the game. You have to beat every level to beat the game. So if the game is on hard difficulty and you try to skip the level, you're never gonna win the game. You're gonna be behind. And that's what I'm talking about in life. You're never gonna win at the game of life. And to summarize all of that, you basically lose confidence in yourself and you get comfortable. You fall into a pit of constant mediocrity. And a lot of people do that. And it's really sad because there are so many young people who have that mindset. Like, you can be 23 or 24 or 25, 26 years old and you think it's over. Like, people have this mindset that they can't achieve something. And they think that that's just who they are. That's just the mind, that's the life that they were given by God. But no, you have to think about your overall mentality about how you think about your life, you know? And I think for young men, I guess, it starts with comfort. And again, I'm sweating right now. It's hot in this kitchen, so excuse me. But yeah, I think the only way out is to make the consistent choice to be better. And that's not easy. Like, I'm not saying that like that's just but like I said before, the same way that this mindset of engaging in low effort rewards and not being motivated, I said that's something that builds up over time. I think the same principle applies to having positive habits. Yeah, positive habits and building up habits that will lead you down a path of success. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes small steps to get there. And I'm sure any successful person can tell you that. You know, like anything that is great most of the time. Now, there are some songs that might be made like this, you know, but y'all get what I'm saying. Most things that are great, most things that are difficult, you know, most things that result in prosperity don't happen overnight. A tree does not grow overnight. Nothing happens overnight, bro. So that's what y'all got to think about. As always, it's being your boy Brandon Davis. I'm out.